In recent years, auto manufacturers have made headlines by bringing daring new concept cars to full production in what amounts to an automotive heartbeat. Two good examples are Chrysler's incredible Viper and the retro-inspired Prowler. Even Ford's Contour concept car of only a few years ago became the basis of the new generation Taurus. Automotive historians will no doubt look back at these groundbreaking designs and point out how remarkably fast their journey from drawing board to driveway took place. But this modern-day metamorphosis from proposal to production first happened over 30 years ago, when the Ford Motor Company turned Detroit upside down with the Mustang. The story really began in 1953, when Chevy unveiled its new sports two-seater, the Corvette, at the GM Motorama. It changed America's idea about the sports car experience, and it caught Ford flat-footed. It wasn't until 1955 that Ford fired back with its two-seat Thunderbird. Unlike the Corvette's six-cylinder engine, the T-Bird boasted a V8, besides looking great. It sold well, but surprisingly, when Ford converted the Bird to a four-seater in 1958, it sold a whole lot better. Enter Lee Iacocca, who at the tender age of 36 had been named general manager at Ford. Out in the real world, the 60s were in full song. Baby boomers were going to be a major force in the automobile marketplace, and Iacocca knew Ford needed another two-seat sports car to bring the youngins into his showrooms. John Nadger was Iacocca's executive stylist at Ford. In late winter 1962, Nadger's full-scale drawing of what was called the Cougar was conceived based on Iacocca's list of specifics. At that time, Dan Gurney was a consultant at Ford, heavily involved in Ford's racing program, which included the Ford GT40. Gurney's immediate excitement at seeing the drawing of the proposed prototype persuaded Iacocca to give the go-ahead for a running example of the radical roadster to be built, and then to be unveiled at Watkins Glen before the U.S. Grand Prix. In October 1962, the prototype made its debut at the Glen. It was a smash. With a four-cylinder mid-mounted engine, a four-speed transmission, and saber-sharp styling, the car not only knocked out Ford's top brass, but also some fledgling designers who were just beginning their trek up the corporate ladder.
I was a kid, I was still at school, and when I saw that, I said, well, that is a company to work for. I have to try to do whatever is humanly possible from my side to be engaged in the Ford design team. And fortunately, I achieved it.
Ironically, after the car's coming out party, the only person who was less than thrilled was Lee Iacocca. He was deeply troubled that the car was judged an unmitigated sensation by real car buffs. He felt that the mass market would consider the car too way out. And remembering how the four-seat T-Bird outsold the two-seater, he sent his stylists back to their drawing boards to come up with a more conservative approach to the car and to add a back seat. The Ford stylists retweaked and repruned the original design. Revisions were approved and then rejected. Then, on April 17, 1964, the production version of the new pony car was proudly introduced by Ford's top executives. Having been called the Cougar and the Torino during development, the car was ultimately named the Mustang. And in only 16 months, it sold a record 680,000 units.
The Mustang really had a strong influence on the overall shape of the car, and obviously was a very successful car. So from the Mustang on, concept cars were much more predictors of what the actual production cars would be. And that Mustang had a very strong influence on the actual production Mustang, which came out in 1964, but it really had that effect on it.
So the next time someone expresses their admiration for an automaker taking a concept car from debut to delivery in 2 years, you might explain to them that the Ford Mustang pulled off that little bit of sleight of hand 3 decades ago and went through a total restyle in the process, changing the way Detroit has looked upon concept cars ever since.
Concept cars are just I think a wonderful expression of design over the years. If you go back and you take a look at some of the personalities, you go back and you take a look at some of the vehicles, and you look at the significance that they have today. Generally in our industry, they're held up as treasured examples of things that I think we all feel good about.
Automobile design is like classical music. It can be appreciated, it needs no interpretation any place in the world. People can understand it. you don't have to understand Italian to appreciate an opera, an Italian opera. It's there. It's real. People recognize it. They like it.